didn't get it. When I was about 4 years old, I was sitting at church about to give my money into the collection plate when my mom said, "Give your money to Jesus." So I put my money in and gave it to the person who was serving communion. His name was Steve, and he loved children. He'd always pass out gum to us. Then I passed it to him, and I looked at my mom with a very puzzled look and said, "That's not Jesus, that's Steve." You see, my mom was talking about a bigger picture, and just like the apostles, I didn't get it. Throughout the book of Matthew, the apostles showed their lack of understanding. In John 11, 1 through 46, Jesus tells the apostles that Lazarus has fallen asleep, and he needs to awaken him. They basically said no, because he can just wake up on his own, he's just asleep. Jesus becomes a little frustrated with them because he's been trying for about 3 years just to get them to understand. They're probably wishing Lazarus would wake up on his own so they wouldn't have to go back to the city that the one had been killed. Another time, the apostles fell asleep on Jesus while he was praying in the garden. Jesus was suffering and he needed to talk to God. So while Jesus was agonizing his prayer, his friends couldn't stay awake. He took Peter, James, and John with him. 3 times Jesus had to come back and say, "Stay awake." 3 times the apostles fell asleep. I mean, sometimes when I'm with my friends, I can stay awake for 48 hours straight. Just ask my mom. She couldn't get me to fall asleep for anything. Jesus also walked on water, calmed the storm, and healed the blind. And yet he had to ask them, "Do you not understand? Really?" I mean, he was probably thinking, what's a guy got to do? I'm not saying the apostles weren't smart. We all know that's not true. I don't want you to think that they're a bad example, because they ended up getting it. It didn't happen overnight, but over time, their faith in Jesus grew. They're a great example of faith, even though they didn't get it all the time. So to think that they just didn't get it is missing the point. The point is we are no different. We are like the apostles because we don't always understand things that God is doing in our lives. We see how great is our God, but doubt when things don't go our way. Are you awake on Jesus, or have you fallen asleep? Has God told you to stay awake numerous times, only to find you've fallen asleep again? Matthew 13, 14 through 16 says a large crowd gathered around Jesus, and he told the apostles that the people didn't understand. In fact, he said, "For these people's hearts have become calloused. They can hardly hear with their ears, and they have closed their eyes. Otherwise, they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, and understand with their hearts, turn, and I would heal them." If there was a book written about us and how our lives told Jesus' story, what would the people in the future think? Would they wonder why we didn't get it? Would they ask, how could they not see God's glory and power? I don't know about you, but I hope when the people in the future read about my life and my story, I hope that they will see that I walked in faith. Even though I didn't always understand everything, I knew Jesus was not Steve, but he lives through people like Steve. And hope that they will see that I trusted God and knew he'd give me all the answers someday.
Amen.